talks about our beautiful dwelling places, which is what we're talking about today. And I love that it says, I, through your abundant love, enter your house, because that's really what it's all about. We're looking for our house of love, which is really due to God and due to us. And the house itself is just a house. So let's sing together. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael, vani berov chastecha, avo vetecha, eshtachavel echal kodshecha, beiratecha. Ma tovu, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
Cantor, thank you so much. For everyone who has not attended a board meeting, so we have one board member on the call, Erwin Goldberg, welcome, and Jeanette Mishral, who has attended many board meetings. I just want to say, I've been involved with many organizations in my career, many nonprofit organizations, and one of the things that makes this organization unique is we start every one of our board meetings with a prayer and a Devar Torah. It's usually a prayer for community service. And starting this meeting with Cantor's Nigun reminds me, and I hope it'll remind everyone, that this is special and this is different. And Cantor, this, I love that prayer, period. Stop. I love the story behind the prayer, but I love your, it just fits your voice so perfectly. So thank you for, and now this is the third time and I've got several more, I get to hear it. So thank you for doing that. So I'd like to turn back to our, as I said, so-called agenda. For those who have just joined us late, the main purpose of these meetings is just to allow you a chance to ask questions and get all the information that you want. And I had mentioned Cindy had asked some questions. Ben Levine is also on the call, and he had asked some questions, and we did get back to him. I suspect that the responses I gave you might partially have answered your questions, and there might be incompletions. So we will certainly allow for that. We often have been opening up with a rabbi, what we're calling a clergy thing, but what we did at the last meeting seemed to work really well. So Rabbi, if you don't mind, can we hold your clergy thing until the end? Because that I thought was a nice bookend to what Cantor does to open us. Is that okay? Just nod your head.
As long as we don't use the phrase holding my clergy thing, then yes.
I said doing your clergy thing.
Let's skip that phrase too, but yes.
If anybody's going to hold it, Rabbi, we want it to be you. All right. So for usually if we've got, we had tried to limit these to 25 or so just to allow everyone to speak. And there's a whole, thing with raising your hand on Zoom and everything. I don't think we're going to need that. We've got, let's see, Cindy, Todd, Sue, Larry, and Ben, who are non-board member congregants. So when you have a question, if you'd like, do you know how to, if you know how to unmute yourself, unmute yourself. If you don't, just kind of wave at the camera, which Cindy and Larry can't do, and I can unmute you. So what questions do you have? What information do you want, or what comments would you like to make?
Ken, it's Jeanette. Do we want to start with the questions that were already asked by Cindy and Ben? So, because they might answer somebody else's questions as well.
That's a good idea, Jeanette. Thanks. Let's see if I can pull them up. Well, let me ask Cindy and Ben if that's okay. It is. Ben's nodding his head. Cindy, I can't see you nodding your head. Let me unmute you. Is it okay if we share your questions, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let me pull them up on my email.
I tried to unmute myself, but it didn't work.
Well, I might have been unmuting you while you were trying to unmute yourself. Coordinating sometimes. Let's see. I think I got them. All right, so Cindy had asked some questions. Where are they? Cindy had, I'm not going to, I'm just going to go to your questions, Cindy. If there's anything else you'd like to share, I'll leave that.
No, it's fine.
I'll leave that for you to do. Well, I don't want to characterize or mischaracterize anything else that you wrote. But there were some specific questions around handicap accessibility. There was concern expressed around identity. So I think we can talk to each of those. Let's talk about the handicap and parking in particular was a concern that Cindy had expressed because their handicap parking is far from the door for somebody with mobility and respiratory issues. So Jeanette, I'm going to call on you because I know you've been very involved with more involved than I have been with some of the specific questions and issues. And then, I can talk more generally. But if you have specific, let me talk generally, and then you can talk more specifically. What we know is that the handicapped parking they have is far. So we've been kind of brainstorming some different ideas, and one is obviously some change in where that where the accessible parking is. So that might be a possibility. I'm not sure about that. Jeanette can speak to that if it came up. Another idea that we've just been spitballing is instituting some type of valet parking that would allow drop off right at the door, similar to what we have now. And then we would park the car. We'd use volunteers and we would park the cars and then have them brought up at the end of service. So Jeanette, let me ask you to supplement what I've said, please.
Well, you're exactly right, Ken. So this was a concern. So everybody knows, as the Transition Location Committee was going through all of the needs of our congregation. And so that did come up. And as Ken stated, we came up with a couple of brainstorms. We did talk to Temple Adith and their leadership, because they obviously have some handicapped individuals as well who also require help. They sometimes have people walk out and walk them in with assisted walking and such. So there are options. And once we start to determine exactly what our pathway is going to be in and how our timing is going to coincide with Temple Adith's, there's even the option of parking in that loop and giving certain individuals the right to park in that loop. So we know that we know about it, and it is a concern. It's top of our list to make sure that we work out all of those kinks before we do get there, Cindy.
Thank you.
As to the question of identity, I wrote back to Cindy with responses to some of these, saying that we would bring these up because these are questions and concerns many of us, not many, probably all of us have had right from the beginning, regardless of where we were going to wind up. We looked at, various properties, and one of the things that, we've said from the beginning, Rabbi said from the very beginning, is we are committed to a Reformed Jewish congregation in Central New York. So how do we show that? How do we do that? And how do we preserve that? has been a question that guided these conversations from the very beginning. So I'll let Rabbi and Cantor address more specifically address it more specifically from a ritual practice, from a just kind of branding standpoint. One of the things that was attractive about Addith, and I'm not saying it was a deciding factor, and other locations would have given us some of these opportunities too. But we certainly are going to have our own signage. We certainly are going to make sure that we are distinct in our presence. So that's going to happen. Part of that is going to include having a separate entrance that's going to be marked Temple Concord. So that's going to help us have that. We're going to have our own offices. So that's going to help us preserve our identity, our own library space. We'll be sharing, ritual space, and we'll have opportunity for our own space too. So there's lots of ways that we'll be preserving our identity, not the least of which is going to be in our programming, in our services, our ritual, and our community outreach and our social action. So Dan and Cantor and Kari, if you wouldn't mind kind of picking up where I've taken it and take it the rest of the way, please.
Sure. I mean, look, from my vantage point, the physical building is changing, but the who we are as a community stays the same. So everything that we're doing currently on Madison Street, we're going to have to find different ways to do on Kimber Road, but we would have to find different ways regardless of where we were moving. And so in terms of how we're functioning as a congregation, Cantor and I are both committed to doing everything we can to make this work and to promote a reform presence in the community. There will be hiccups, of course. There will be hiccups with any move in any location, just as there are hiccups when you move into a house. But I'm not overly worried about that stuff. In terms of the space used, we're going to have to do some experimenting. It may be that we decide that using the sanctuary and the chapel work great for us. It may be that we decide that we need to configure some other kind of space. We know that there are possibilities with all of those things, those options, and we're going to have to just wiggle around and see and try. And there's virtually no way to do it in advance other than trying it actually once we've got a chance to do it. And again, that's one of those pieces we would have anywhere we moved. When we got down to 3 finalists, there was not a clear path of this would automatically go here and this would go there in any of them. There were those sorts of questions in every option. And so we'll work through it. And we will do everything we can to continue our community.
Cantor, could you speak a little bit to the music and the parts that you'll be preserving and bringing forward?
Sure. Once we're in the building, we'll be able to function just as we have at the building on Madison Street musically. I mean, there's nothing that would hold us back from that, which is really, really great. So we'll be able to have all of our choir events and our bands and everything that we already do, any concerts, any special events. They're being very accommodating that we really have free run of what we need to do in any space that we're having our service in, because while we are in that space, that is our space. And boy, oh boy, if anything has taught me about how we can exist in any situation, it's during this time of being separate but together. We've figured out a way to manage to have meaningful musical services, even though you've got me in my living room and Rabbi in his dining room. So if we can figure out how to make that work, we can figure out how to make any space and any building work, especially a building that's already designed for community, for worship, and for congregation, because that's what we are. So I hope that's helpful.
I do have one question, Cantor. Will
Yes.
we be able to use our own Torahs at the services?
Yes, we can use our own Torahs. We actually specifically asked about that, and they're fine with us swapping out Torahs. So all those beautiful new mantles that we just dedicated this year, we'll be able to see them because they will make the place feel like our home. And I think that that's really wonderful. It's a great question.
Thanks, Ben. Okay,
And
so
the parking, Ken, I had mentioned that during the high holidays, they park at CBA and walk in.
mhm.
There just isn't enough parking on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, period.
Yeah, and of course, I'm going to be a little bit snarky here. We've had such great parking around Temple Concord on Madison.
Yeah,
Street.
that's true.
That's never been an issue. So yes, there are going to be logistic challenges, and I know Rabbi and Cantor already have been thinking about it. Rabbi has on every one of these calls been quick to say, "Who knows where we're going to be this year and how services are going to be run this year? We
And when?
be together, even if we're together." So,
Right.
but that's certainly an issue, and there's different options for that. And inevitably, I think, Ben, you had brought this question up. Inevitably, there are going to be, little things and big things, and we're going to, approach this in a very collaborative way. We are going to work together. So even though it is a tenant landlord relationship, they want to make this work, and they've been really from the beginning, in my experience and everything I've heard subsequent to the meeting I attended, wanting to make sure that we know and that every one of our congregants knows we are not second class. We are not second fiddle. And even though we're a tenant, we are co-equal in terms of our needs, and they will be respected and supported. And if we run into issues, we'll discuss them and we'll resolve them together. Dan, you look like, Rabbi, you look like you were about to say something else. I might have picked up something you were going to say because I've heard these calls a few times.
Only that, do we not know where? We don't know when any of this is happening. I mean, just so you're aware, we're on, I think we've got 5 different variations of possibilities for high holidays this fall. And that's dealing just with the personal distancing issue of the current situation. That doesn't take into account, say, the closing time of the sale. And there are a whole bunch of factors at play. I think we're all committed to making this work, and we're going to have to just be patient with the current challenges we're facing as a society, and get it all the pieces together. But if you had told me that we would be moving to Addith and we were going to have complications, I would have said, okay. If you would have told me that we were going to do that plus do it in a pandemic, I would have said, oh, lovely. And then, what all of that does with the sale and government approvals and all of that stuff on the sale, it's just a complicated deal. And so we've got to be as malleable as we can be, but also hold true to our own core values. So the malleability doesn't mean we're any less committed to a reform presence. It does mean that we got to do everything we can to work well together. And that's what we're committed to do.
Thanks. Todd, I see your hand up. Let me, before you ask your question, Ben Levine had asked a couple of questions. And so I don't know that this is going to be your question, but let me turn to his questions, and then I'll come to you next, Todd. So Ben, you had said it was okay if I shared your questions. So Ben had sent an email asking a few questions. And Jeanette, I think you're going to be the best person to answer these, at least the first couple. So Ben's first question was, what is Concord's financial commitment regarding rent, utilities, janitorial, repairs, and replacement, if necessary, of major components such as HVAC, roof, etc.? So Jeanette, let's take that one first.
Need to unmute yourself, Jeanette.
Let me unmute you, Jeanette. I got you. No, it's not letting me. There you go.
There we go. So it's a tenant-landlord relationship, Ben, and we pay an annual rental fee of $175,000, and it's all inclusive, including all of our maintenance. So everything that Floyd does at Temple right now will be handled by Temple Addith staff. We have no obligation to repair any HVAC, the roof, or anything. It's we are paying one fixed cost, and we will incur no other costs as far as Temple Addith is concerned.
That's good from a budgetary standpoint. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And just so you know, you didn't ask this question, Ben, but it made me think that it's a natural follow-on. How does that compare with our current expenses? All of the 3 temporary locations we looked at were within about $20,000 of each other, from the one that would have been the most to the one that would have been the least. And all of that is pretty comparable to what we're, when you look at total all in for where we are at Madison Street, when you consider the janitorial, I hate to say janitorial, what's Floyd's title, Cherie? Maintenance, facilities. So it's all pretty comparable.
Just from a thinking standpoint, does this also include startup costs like wiring it for a computer system? Telephones?
No, that's separate, and that's budgeted. A big piece of, and Jeanette, you'll speak more in detail about this, please. A big piece of what's been going on for the last several months is, what are going to be the physical needs and what changes need to be made to any of the properties. All 3 of the properties we looked at were going to require some build out. Jeanette?
Yes, so Ken is right. That being said, Temple Adith had been looking at upgrading their internet and their phone, and they put it on hold knowing that if we came on board that perhaps they would need something a little bit more premium. So we won't be incurring that full cost, just so you know. And the HVA system's already there. We might have to do a little duct work, but really it's the walls, the brick and mortar that is going to cost us to move there.
And that was all.
Just as an aside, unrelated to that specifically, does Temple Adith, either in its sanctuary or in its small chapel, have live stream capability? Not Zoom, but live stream. No, Rabbi? Okay.
At the moment, they do not, nor do we actually in ours. And so we're both going to have to figure out that equation. When we looked at live stream on our end, it was decidedly expensive. Zoom has sort of changed that dynamic a little bit, and it may be that Zoom is the way we go. I mean, we know, for example, that whenever we're allowed back in the building, we're going to have to still have a Zoom component or a live stream component, and we're going to have to figure out how to pay for that. And I trust Adith knows that too. They haven't quite gone as fully online as we have in terms of services and that kind of stuff. And they've got some Jewish law related hangups to going fully online that we don't have to worry about. So there's some interesting little hiccups there, but we're all going to have to address it because it's the world we're living in.
Also, as an aside, and you already answered my second question, what was the legal relationship? You told me it's landlord and tenant. I asked you about conflict resolution, 2 Jews, 3 conflicts. So, and you'll put that in place. I have nothing to do with that. But in terms of conflicts, this sort of strikes home because I have a grandniece who's coming up for Bas Mitzvah at Adith in 2021. What arrangements have been discussed in terms of coordinating conflicting May Mitzvah days between the 2 congregations for the use of the main chapel?
Funny you should ask. I've actually been texting today about that. We had, when we started the community Hebrew school 5 years ago, Jeanette, remind me, what year, are we in year 5 or 6? I forget what year we're in.
We are in year 5, yep.
Year 5. We made an agreement then that we would cross-check our dates with each other. During Rabbi Drazen's tenure, that worked beautifully. Last year, it was a little bit harried, and this year, apparently, Rabbi Zahavi didn't get the memo, and he went ahead and gave out dates for 2022 without cross-checking with either us or Beth Shalom, and we're now in the midst of cleaning that up because turns out there are conflicts with both synagogues, and we've now got to figure out how to do it. The goal was we had one community Hebrew school. We weren't going to do conflicting bar mitzvah dates because kids are all in school together, and we wanted everybody to be able to attend each other's b'nai mitzvahs. So with Beth Shalom, we've continued to double check that. We're doing that right now. I know that the dates between now and 2022, so 2020 and 2021, have been cross-checked. The only hiccup that I can see is that they gave out dates in 2022 without clearing with anybody else first. And so now we've got to go back and deal with that piece. But like anything, everybody gives a little bit and everybody works out a deal, and we'll work out some sort of compromise. When we give out dates for our families, we ask for a first, second, and third choice. And we tell people, look, we can't always get your first choice. We do everything we can to do that. And if it means that we've got to, have a family or two get a second choice, then that's what we'll do. I trust they're willing to say the same thing to their families. At least I hope they are. And we'll work something out.
And Ben, I want to kind of riff off of an outcome of your question about the financials, and that is obviously all of this is temporary location, contingent on the sale of the building. So when the building sells, if the building sells, when the building sells, we'll have I don't want to say a pot of money, but we're setting aside the majority of it that's going to be in a permanent endowment that we will be able to benefit from in terms of income dividend to provide a secondary significant and repeating revenue stream. That's why we're doing this. But concurrent with that, we've got that remaining balance that we'll be able to use for this transition temporary location and for then preparing and planning for our more permanent location. That said, we're not going to spend $3 million on a temporary location. We're going to do that as minimally as possible. So we'll do things that we need to do to make it livable. Rabbi used the analogy of moving into a new home. Well, we're gonna make it accommodate us. We're not going to overbuild and overspend. But at the same time, there might be opportunities, and this was one of the things that was probably unique to ADIF, for additional outside funding and outside sources that we might not have had in some of the other locations. And we've gotten early indications that's a possibility. So some of these build outs that we're referring to could happen for us and allow us to save some of our principal too, which would be a great
Are you
thing.
talking about grants?
Possible grants or outright foundation gifts from local sources or even national sources. Yeah. Cherie, you had said you wanted to say something. I want to come back to Todd. Or you looked like you wanted to say something. You're all good? It was covered? Okay. Todd?
Thanks. You covered some of it, but one of my questions I had was just a logistical in terms of renting the space. Are we always going to be using the small sanctuary, or are we going to be split into large sanctuary? I see you shaking your head. No. So
I'll let Rabbi
what about
or Cantor answer.
what about high holy days? Like because they're like Yom Kippur usually lasts for days on end. So I don't know how we would share that.
It doesn't last for days on end, but it feels like that. Then again, who knew we'd be in quarantine for 438 years? So there's that.
Their sanctuaries not large enough for both congregations at the same time.
No, and we wouldn't do services at the same time. What's likely to happen on high holidays is that one of us will be in the sanctuary, and it's likely that they will be in the sanctuary and we'll be in the social hall.
The social hall.
That is, of course, dependent on sound being able to be muffled so that the sound of one doesn't bleed into the other. If the sound piece can't be reasonably handled in that building, then we'll have to figure out a different solution. Week to week, and for B'nai Mitzvah and weddings and funerals and all of that, families will have a choice. If they want to hold their B'nai Mitzvah or their wedding or their funeral in one room or the other, we should be able to balance that out pretty easily. I mean, that should be a relatively simple back and forth. In terms of Friday night services, Saturday morning services, again, it'll depend on the week-to-week schedule. But there are those two options, and then there's also an option to set up a temporary worship space in part of the social hall. So there are multiple options, and the best answer I can give you is we're going to have to just try them all on for size and see what works best. Obviously, it'll be easier to use one of the two rather than having to set up and take down every week the third one, but until we actually get in there and try it, there's no way to give you a definitive answer.
And Rabbi, let me just piggyback on that. If we were to set up a temporary to permanent one in the social hall, we wouldn't have to take it down and set it up every week. They rarely use their social hall for events 2 to 5 times a year. So the way it's the contract or the architects have worked it out, it would be semi-permanent. So it wouldn't be just a quick takedown. And we'd only have to take it down a few times a year. So it would be relatively permanent in that space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
And as Rabbi has said, who knows, Rabbi and Cantor are working on 5 permutations of High Holy Days for this year. So likely, it's unlikely that we'll be at Addith for High Holy Days this year. And I would say the chances of that happening are shrinking and shrinking.
And
You
we're
know.
hoping that the 5 permutations are enough, to be honest. I'm
Well,
a little afraid that it may not be.
As I told the rabbi a few weeks ago, I think I said, even when they start opening up, we're still not going to be allowed to congregate for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it may well be that High Holidays are like this on Zoom. I really don't know at the moment. I can tell you that as a congregation, we're following the advice of the scientists and the medical people, not the political leadership, not anybody else. And our goal is to make sure that our people are safe and remain safe and healthy. We'll do our best.
Can I offer a suggestion unrelated to this, well, sort of related to this? For the high holidays, assuming for the moment that we are not in a facility such as Addith or even a Concord, and we're doing the Zoom from a remote location, we've been doing a lot of Zooming with family, and people have these backgrounds that they can put on behind them. Can we replicate our dinner as a background to whatever Zoom we have for the holidays, so you have the sense that you're sitting in the Concord Sanctuary observing a service? You have it right there.
I know what you're talking about, Ben.
Your background.
Some of us who don't know how to do that.
Well, Ken does, because he's sitting on the beach right now.
I know, but there's some
And
of us
it's a
who
great
don't.
idea.
Oh, drinking my Mai Tai on the beach.
You wish.
It's a great idea, Ben, and well, Cantor and I have to just figure out how to do it, but it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just need to get someone in there to take a really, really great picture of the bima that would look good behind us from the correct vantage point. 'Cause
Right.
we've got lots of pictures of the room, but of the whole room, so.
Yeah, that's a great
But
idea.
that's easily done. In fact, Rabbi Pepperstone was showing me that he has a couple different versions of Beth Shalom to stick behind him when he's doing stuff. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
So great thought, Ben. I really like that.
Ben, I think that idea is out of this world. I'm jumping.
Answer, Jeff Cooper can help you with that. He's had himself sitting on the Star Trek Enterprise, so he can, he's very techy. Ask him, he'd be happy to help.
Yeah, it's more getting a good photographer in there.
Then there's a little computer help, making sure our computers can handle all that. But
Yeah, no,
we can figure
that
that
part's easy.
those are solvable problems.
I'm jumping for joy at the suggestion.
Oh my gosh.
All right, Ken, you've taken it too far now.
That's right.
The hook.
All right. So I think those were the questions that we had ahead of time from Ben and Cindy. And Todd, you had a question. Is there anything else? Larry, I know you're on the phone. I can unmute you if you would like to ask any questions.
No, I'm learning here.
Okay. Good. Sue, anything you'd like to ask?
Uh-oh.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, I did. My one question is with the parking, do they have wheelchairs for someone who can't walk once they're inside to get, as people, there's change from one day to the next week or whatever, and
There are like 2 wheelchairs inside the doors. That's it for everybody.
Do we have wheelchairs right now?
I'll let Cherie respond to that.
Yes.
She's nodding her
Then
head.
they'll go with us.
okay, so somebody would be able to get wheeled once they're inside the main door,
Mhm.
all the way into where services are.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
And then afterwards on the way back?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
So you have our commitment on that, whether we're at after High Holy Days or wherever we're at for the High Holy Days. We'll make sure.
Okay. I'm not so concerned with myself at this time, but I'm just thinking of other people that I know have
Oh,
that
I'm
problem.
gonna do it.
Thank you, Sue.
Welcome, Cindy.
Yeah, certainly. We will address every need that we can.
Probably one of the most challenging issues that you're going to have is making congregants understand that it's not like walking out of one room and turning off a light and walking into a new room and turning on the light. You have the same illumination, everything's going to be the same. As the rabbi pointed out, there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And there'll be a lot of dissatisfaction in the first, I won't give a number of the time frame, there'll be a lot of dissatisfaction at the beginning. And people just have to learn to be patient. This is a 3-year exercise, hopefully not even more than that, and unless it becomes permanent. And they just have to be patient and understand that in time it will work out.
Thank you for your comment.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's about change, right? And change is all about loss. And so helping people deal with that sense of loss of identity, loss of relationship, loss of familiarity, all those things that you're describing, Ben. Thank you.
The older we get, the more averse to change we get.
Well, I don't know. My mother turned 96 a few weeks ago. She spent the last 8 weeks in a rehab facility. She just moved home yesterday with a full-time 24-hour aide. My mother is a person who said, I will never live in a rehab facility, a nursing home. I will never have a 24-hour aide. So,
she also didn't expect to be 96.
well, actually, she probably did. Her mother was almost 100. Her aunt was 100. So yeah, she had a pretty good odds in her favor.
I have a.
Erwin, I see you unmuted yourself. Did you want to make a comment? Or was that an accident?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I have one question?
Yes, sir.
Is Tommy and Mike going to follow us to Addith so we have our same security guys?
We're going to be looking at Addith as a different space. We don't know what our needs are going to be. So I don't know that they won't. I don't know that they will. Whatever our needs are, we will be determining.
They don't have them at Addith. They don't have security during the regular Shabbat.
They do have security. They have
key fobs. Every member of Addith has a key fob.
Yes, they have a different way of doing security, and that's certainly one of the things that was discussed. Jeanette, would you like to add something to that?
Initially, we believe we will take our existing security with us to have Tommy and Mike at our doors. As Rabbi and Cantor Kari have said, it's a work in process, so it might change once we get there. But the plan right now is to maintain our same level of security for Shabbat services and while our children are in the building, et cetera, et cetera. We have certain, Cherie can explain more of what our policies are as far as who's in the building and what level of security we have. And we plan to maintain that when we move to the new building.
Yeah, and just to clarify what I was saying, you had asked about 2 specific individuals, but certainly from a policy standpoint and a safety standpoint, we will be as vigilant and provide that to the same extent that we have been. Cherie, did you want to add something about security that falls under your bailiwick?
Jeanette speaks for me well. We will be evaluating, how that's going to work for sure, but it's definitely on our radar, Sue.
Okay.
That question. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to know about, or any opinion you'd like to express? Go ahead, Ben.
No, I was about to thank you.
Oh, okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Good luck with everything. I hope to see everybody this summer.
Very good. Or on Zoom Friday night.
Zoom.
Saturday morning, or Saturday night, or Sunday. It's amazing what Rabbi and Cantor have been doing with Zoom. It really is.
It really is. We owe them a big debt of gratitude.
Yeah, and we continue to express it.
Well, thank you.
And certainly, if you have any idea what the other schools are doing, you have no idea the work that Cantor and Rabbi have put into maintaining our programming. You have done a fantastic job. Really.
Okay, as I said, the agenda was yours. We had nothing specific to present. We just wanted to give you an opportunity to ask your questions and make your comments. If there aren't any more, we will call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Ken.
Let me
Oh,
add
sorry.
one quick
Oh,
thing.
wait. Oh, yeah, now it's time for the rabbi thing.
We need a quirky thing.
I was trying to avoid that phrase. Cindy, you try sometimes. And the most important piece, I think, for all of this is look around the screen in front of you. And when you join us on the Zoom on a Friday night, take a good look at the Zoom. This is about you and me, and not you and me individually, but all of us interacting with each other. This is about the people. Buildings come and go. Relationships are what really hold us together. And so while these are big changes and generational changes, or in the Temple's case, 5 generations have gone into the last building, these are normal sorts of changes. What hasn't changed is our commitment to each other. And that becomes the essential way, I think, to view all of this, that we are committed to staying as a community, as a sacred kahila, and working together to build a future together. And so that's, the rest of this stuff has its hiccups, it has its headaches, for sure. But at the end of the day, it's about us. It's about who we are and who we want to be and who we are capable of becoming. And that's what both Cantor and I are committed to building and doing everything we can to support and enhance. And so we're going to have interesting challenges in front of us in lots of ways, but we're excited to move forward and to keep building our community.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It's good to see
Bye.
you.
See you Friday.
You bet.
Shalom.
Bye.